Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? Can you hear me? Because we know how my internet can be sometimes. Sometimes it can be crazy. Hello, Flies. How you doing, honey? I hope you're feeling better. If you can hear me, let me know in the comments. We're going to have a little different. You can hear me. Good. We're going to have a little different stream tonight. Um, Last night on Duchess, she was talking about how good her liked science, and it's great. I'm a history girl myself. Um, and you know how we do it over here. You never know what's going to happen on this channel. We could be covering cases. We could be talking about Jesus. We could be talking about JFK. Oh, bless your heart, Roz. Okay. Tonight I'm going to go over a couple little things. And I'm going to commentate on some. I'm going to give you my opinion on some. It may not be a popular opinion, but it's mine and I'm allowed to have it, right? Um, when we think of 9/11, 9 times out of 10, we don't have to go much further than that. Just saying 9/11, put a 1 in chat if you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, 9 times out of 10, you know where you were, what you were doing. Hello, Michelle. You don't have to go into grave. Thank you, Lolly. Hello, honey. It's thanks for being here. But you don't got to go into grave detail about it, but everybody knows what you're talking about. In my opinion, November the 22nd, 1963 is the same thing. I wasn't even born yet, but if I hear November 22nd, 1963, I automatically think of Kennedy. And like 9/11, everybody has their opinion on what happened that day. Am I right? Um, Me personally, like I said, it might be an unpopular opinion. Well, some people have it, but um, I personally, just straight up with you, do not feel like we were told the full story. And when in school, when I learned about JFK and I learned about his assassination, I was like everybody else. I thought, well, Lee Harvey Oswald did it. But the more I learned about what had happened that day and everything around it, the more it made me think there's just absolutely no way. There's no way that one man did this. Um, for starters, one of the things that kind of leans me towards that is with the Kennedys, there's something that happened that you don't hear. It only happened with him and with his brother. One lone nut job, able to take out the president. It's captured on film. They hold the film for 13 years. And then again, it's on film when Jack Ruby killed Oswald. Yeah, I, I think it all goes back to our own. I completely agree. Completely agree. Um, but you have one lone assassin able to kill Kennedy. Then Oswald is killed. And then the only other time in history that we even hear of that happening is when Robert Kennedy was killed. But I'm going to show y'all something, and bear with me. You know how I am. One thing that I got to wondering about, I'm going to go over this too. Um, for it to been him by himself, he had to have a whole lot of knowledge in this stuff. Like, for one thing, he hadn't been working at the book depository too long. On October the 14th, Ruth Payne tells him about a job opening there. So we know he was hired after that. That's 1 month. 1 month to know everything, right down to the detail, what turns they're taking, and I'll get to that. Where you're going to be at, have it planned out. 1 month. Think about that. 1 month to be able to kill the president. We've got a bullet that defies all bullets in time. I mean, right down to hit, makes it a curve going down in. It's weird. Plumb impossible, in my opinion. But one of the biggest kickers with me, what really I cannot get past, other than the Zapruder film, was on November the 20th. It was published in the newspaper, The Route. On November the 19th, it was changed just the day before. It was published in the newspaper the day after. So that gave him 2 days. They wasn't even going to turn on him. They were going to go down Main Street until 2 days before he was assassinated. Now, how? Explain to me, y'all. How in the world could one man do that? Okay, but we're going to watch this because along with 101 other things, and trust me, I've got more books up in this house on JFK than almost anything. Exactly, Michelle. He couldn't have. He would have had to have knowledge, but them saying he had knowledge would also be admitting there's more than one. Just like if there was more than 3 shots, there had to be more than one person. Personally, I don't think he, and I may be a little bit all over the place. I wanted to have this just mapped out and do it, but old girl took a great big file out into the yard. I filled me a horse file, and here I am. But even with his assassination attempt on, what was his name? Walters? He missed. He was closer, and he missed. So that's telling me it's not the best shot, but he was able to make this impossible shot. And not only that, but all the witnesses turned up dead. If they didn't go with one report, they ended up dead. Didn't they prove someone got hit from? Yes. When you think of everybody that got shot that day, you think of Kennedy and John Connally, both in the same limousine. But they wasn't the only one that got hit by a bullet that day. There was a man standing like by the road under the underpass that also got grazed by a bullet. But they don't want to talk about that one, right? Also, there was something else. I've got a lot on this. Let's go to this, and it may trigger what I'm thinking, and what I may even have to do more than one stream. Not even gonna lie, but just a second. I'm going to turn my camera off because we know how my internet is. Okay, if you can see the screen, put a 1 in chat.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You'll excuse the fact that I'm out of...
Okay, can you hear it? Seems awful low, Crystal. Okay, can you hear it also, Flies? Here we go.
Breath, but about 10 or 15 minutes ago, a tragic thing, from all indications at this point, has happened in the city of Dallas. Let me quote to you this. And you'll excuse me if I am out of breath. A bulletin. This is from the United Press from Dallas. President Kennedy and Governor John Connally have been cut down by assassins' bullets in downtown Dallas. They were riding in an open automobile when the shots were...
Did you all notice that? Assassins. Now, this was as it happened. Look at that.
Now, you'll excuse me if I am out of breath. A bulletin. This is from the United Press from Dallas. President Kennedy and Governor John Connally have been cut down by assassins' bullets in downtown Dallas. They were riding in an open automobile when the shots were fired. The president, his limp body carried in the arms of his wife, Jacqueline, has rushed to Parkland Hospital. And if you'll excuse me if I give some directions and we talk about what we're going to do here for the next few minutes. But, Bobby, let's tape this, if you please, particularly the interview with the eyewitness people. It is being taped. Good. Here's a piece of copy that was rushed to me and was torn off from the United Press in Dallas. President Kennedy has been...
Okay. Now, do keep in mind, this is as it was happening. And I would think that people's account of what happened would be more clear the day that it happened than it would be years later. That's my opinion. And this is all for fair use.
Been shot in Dallas, has been shot in Dallas, Texas. He was shot as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed the president. She cried, "Oh no," as the motorcade sped on. An Associated Press photographer, James Algens, 8LTGENS, reports he saw blood on the president's head.
This guy's like majorly out of breath. You could tell he ran straight in there and started reporting. Yeah, they always think we get amnesia, Michelle.
The AP man said he heard 2 shots but thought someone was shooting fireworks until he saw the blood on the president. He also said he saw no one with a gun. We were awfully close, Jerry.
Now, these 2 are the 2 that we saw several pictures of that was covering their small children. Listen to what their account was. And they were by the grassy knoll.
As you know, I'm Mr. Peppermint. We were awfully close to being an eyewitness. We were standing on Houston Street between Main and the next street over. Jerry, come in, would you please? And the next street over, we watched the president come by and gave him the applaud that is due the office of the President of the United States. And as he turned left, 2 or 3 shots rang out. We thought they were firecrackers until, I thought they did until the last shot rang out and we heard people screaming. And we rushed over in time to see a policeman standing behind one of the fire posts, looking around for some place to shoot, someone to shoot at. I'd like to remind you here that as the news comes in to the newsroom, we will be on the air. We'll have our eyewitness people here in just a moment. Vicki, would you see if they need some coffee or something? These people are awfully shaken up. They come awfully close. They were in the line of fire. Jared?
I remember, Jay, you said, I thought it was, a firecracker or something like that. And then
Listen what he says here.
followed 1 shot, and then a second or 2 later, another shot, and then another second or 2,
third
and
one.
the 3rd shot, and you said the man's been shot at, and we both turned.
No, I said, my God, that's gunshot.
That's right.
No.
And then we turned right over, we were behind Mr. Dealey's statue.
Right.
And we ran over to the cement wall, and we saw people beginning to scatter in places, and I believe our eyewitness was on the ground.
Chair, would you do me a favor? Would you go check in the newsroom now? And as the men
He's shutting him up pretty quick.
come in from the field, or if they have stories, please let me know, and also get someone to check with, we were supposed to take the feed from KRLD. They may still be doing a feed from there. Check and let me know. And until our news crew gets back in, we will sort of use this studio as our headquarters. These people, and you will excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, because I know that you are so upset, but I would like to talk to you for a minute. It's a little bit awkward, so the camera shots will have to fall as they may. You understand?
Is it freezing or anything? Is it playing okay? Because I want you to hear what they say here.
Right here, and maybe somebody can give me a chair while we're doing this. May I have your name, please, sir?
Bill Newman.
And this is Mrs. Newman?
Yes,
And this is
James Clayton.
James, and this is?
Billy.
Billy, tell me what you saw and what you felt. What happened to you?
We just come from left field after seeing the president and the first lady, and we were just in front of the triple underpass on Elm Street, and we were at the edge of the curve, getting ready to.
Okay, so it's just jerky. That I think that's the way they filmed it. It's jerky, period. But long as you can hear it. But listen what he says.
Wave at the president. So,
You were down under the viaduct, so to speak, weren't you?
well, we were halfway in between
On the grass.
triple underpass. We were at the curve when the incident happened. But the president's car was some 50 feet still yet.
In front of you.
In front of us coming towards us, and we heard the first shot, and the president, I don't know who was hit first, but the president jumped up in his seat, and I thought it scared him. I thought it was a firecracker because he looked, fear. And then as the car got directly in front of us, well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the president in the side of the temple.
Do you think the first gunshot came
Did you hear where he said it
from
hit
behind
him?
you too?
I think it came from.
Hit him in the side of the temple. A gunshot that's hitting you in the side of the temple, it's coming from in front of you, not behind you.
Same location now. Apparently back up on the mall. I don't know what you call it.
For the benefit of nomenclature, all of you folks have gone out under the viaduct, and as you turn, going under the viaduct on the left-hand side, there's some grass.
He's talking about the grassy knoll.
You think the shot came from up on top of the viaduct toward the president, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Not on the viaduct itself, but up on top of the hill, a little mound of ground.
So one of the first eyewitnesses that come forward to talk about what he saw said the shot come from the grassy knoll. Not from over top of the underpass, but from the grassy knoll.
Ground there, the garden.
How far away would you say that is from where the president was? A couple of 300 yards, something like that?
Well, I have no idea because I didn't see where the gunshot come from. We were looking directly at the president when he was hit, and he was more or less directly in front of us, and we didn't realize what happened until we seen the side of his head whenever the bullet hit him in the head.
Did you see the blood
I've seen
the
that.
president's head?
Yes, sir, we seen that. I seen that. I don't know if my wife did. I seen that.
Did
Oh,
you?
yes, sir. It was awful.
It is awful.
I saw it.
What kind of work do you do, sir?
I'm a construction worker, electrician.
Is this the first time that you have seen a president of the United States? Did you see him when he was here before in 1961?
No, sir. No, sir.
You're a housewife.
Yes, sir.
Took the day off to come downtown and see the president.
Yes, sir, we did. We wanted our children to see it.
Were you in the line of fire? I noticed, I remember vividly whenever I walked over and looked over the banister there and saw across the street that you were down on the ground so that to keep out of the line of fire. What was the first thought that struck your mind?
Oh, I thought it was a firecracker, and I saw the blood, and I had the baby, and I just ran, and I got on top of him and laid on grass. It just scared me. It was terrible.
Did you see anyone else hit besides the...
Governor Conley was kind
Oh,
of turned to the side, and he grabbed his stomach.
You Duchess.
Okay. Thank you. Jerry, if anything else comes in, we had a report. And I'd like to say here, for the benefit of you folks who are tuning in, who have tuned in late to watch Julie Bonnell's show, that we...
So he says the
That
shot
was the
came
program.
from the grassy knoll. This is directly after Kennedy had been shot. They don't even know he's dead yet, you all. And she says they were in the line of fire, and she gets on top of her son to protect him. So I would think, my personal opinion, that this would be an accurate encounter because it had just happened. Just a second. Okay. Now there's another one. Just a minute. I'm going to see if I can't find the actual Zapruder film. Well, the actual one would be hard to find, but you know what I mean. Just a second. This one, I think, is it. This is restored to 4K, so let's see. Now, I'm on load. It might be that film period. Let's try this one. No, that one's Cross the Road. Here we go. Okay. When he comes out from behind, he's grabbing his neck. Okay? His head flies to the back. Now, if he was shot from the back, my personal opinion is that is not the way his body would have got thrown. But this right here has always been something too. Mrs. Kennedy stated more than once that when she got on the back, she wasn't trying to get away from the bullets. She actually was going after a piece of his skull. And the officer that was on the motorcycle said that he was covered in blood splatter. So, to me, in my personal little country bumpkin opinion, this film alone shows he was not shot from the back. Let's see here. We'll slow it down this time. There's the motorcycles. Okay. And when he comes out, he's grabbing his neck. You can, to me, that's plain as day. I'm sorry. My mom was 12 years old when he was shot. And Duchess, I guarantee you, she can tell you what she was doing, where she was at. My dad could. But the belief that one man did this, and just a second, see if I can find it. Okay. in my personal opinion, while I'm waiting for this to pull up, he would have had to had inside knowledge. Again, he did not work at the book depository, but for maybe a month. The route changed on the 19th, wasn't published till the 20th. That gives him 2 days to plan it. There's no way. There is absolutely no way. Oh, Duchess, I love talking to people that knew Kennedy or was there. Or I actually took care of a man when I worked at the nursing home, and he was the co-pilot for Air Force One through Eisenhower and Kennedy. And I'm here to tell you, he had some awesome stories. And he was able to tell you the difference in their personalities and how things changed from one president to the next. And it was very neat. Yes, Ruth Payne, who his wife was living with at that time, was the one that told him about the job. It wasn't like he went there trying to get the job himself. She told him about the job. So, in my opinion, it just doesn't add up that he planned this out so perfectly. Not to mention that the scope that was on the rifle wasn't even made for that gun. Okay. In case somebody wants to come up. My internet's been stupid. It's been crazy tonight. Trying to get this to pull up. I was going to pull it up on Google Earth. Okay. That ain't what I'm needing to pull up. Let's do a new one. Okay. My internet is crazy. It's crazy, you all. Okay. Come on, don't be crazy. Please work for me. Okay, now I'll share it. Did you see the 1,500 files that were released in 2021? I think I read on it. Yes. Yes, I was one of those people that went straight and downloaded them and read every single word. Okay, that X is where Kennedy's motorcade was. This building here is the Texas Book Depository. And this is the direction that it had came. It came down this road right here, and then it turned left on M. Now, Oswald, I'm trying to get this to turn, but it will not for the life of me. Let me see. I'm no Gray Hughes, y'all. Okay. They came down through this way. Oswald was supposed to be perched up here on the 6th floor. They take this turn and go down this road right here. And then Kennedy is shot here. Now, would it not have made more sense if he indeed did do it by himself to shoot when they came down this way? Now, earlier I told you that the route changed. Originally, they were supposed to came down Main Street, which is right here, and just went straight. But the route was changed to where they'd turn right and then make this hard left to get to the same place. Make it make sense, you all, because it don't make no sense to me. Let me see here. Okay. Now, this is the Dow Tech building. This is the book depository. I can't pronounce that good, and y'all know I can't. This tree, now keep in mind of how these trees are right now, is not how they was in 63. A lot of them wasn't big at all. Then you've got this tree right here, and here's the fence line at the grassy knoll. Just a second. And right there's the X that marks where he was shot. Abraham Zapruder was perched right up here on a concrete slab. Now, personally, I don't think they had to have a good shot, because I think there was more than one shooter there that day. Now, hear me out. If you did have somebody that was in the depository, you had maybe somebody over here in the Dow Tech building, and then somebody right up here in this fence line. Well, one of the three is going to hit. There was so many places that somebody could have shot. Why there? That's like the least likely. And you think about having to get out of here afterwards, and I have got other stuff I'm going to show you. What if there was people in the crowd that was actually giving a signal if because when they shot him, he could not live. They couldn't let him live. It couldn't be a injury shot. They couldn't take a risk of him not being killed because he wouldn't know where he got shot at. You know what I'm saying? But suppose you have people. I often have been asked, well, how in the world did people get out of there? What if they didn't have to really get out of there? What if they were so-called blending in? Because on top of this, all kinds of protocols was broke that day. On top of this underpass, people were standing on top of this underpass that day. The president's limousine goes right up and under it. Now, I'm not Secret Service or nothing like that, but I don't think I would let him go up and under this with people standing up there. Somebody wouldn't even have to have a gun. They could have a brick and drop it, and, there's a problem. But on top of that, all these windows over here was open. There was people hanging out of them. And just a second. Stop sharing for a second. Then we've got this. I'll show you. And this photo has always, always, always bothered me. It's on my phone. I was thinking it was on here. Okay. Okay. And this is just one of the many odd photos from that day. But, okay, we'll pull this one up. That one. This one. This one. And we got that one. Let's get this one. And this one. Okay. Now, oh, thank you, Dutchie. Okay, this will be the first one I share. Well, no, this one will. Okay. These two men, they look way too calm to me. They're just sitting there, pretty as you can believe. And I'll tell you who they are here in a few minutes. All around them, chaos is going off. And they're just sitting there. Okay? Let me see here. Let's see if it'll let me zoom in. Well, I know it probably won't. Now, if you want to know who they are, this one right here is your umbrella guy. He's the man that had an umbrella in the middle of a hot day. And then this guy is the one that was seen At one point, he has his hands up. One point, he has it over his stomach. And now you've got people running all around them towards the grassy knoll, and they're just chillaxing on the curve. Here is another one. Now, put me a trigger warning, somebody up there. I need a trigger warning. A big old trigger warning. Thank you, flies. Thank you so much. Okay. Let me put this up here. And I'm going to warn y'all, and a lot of people see this before. It's an autopsy photo, but this is not the angle they usually show it at. But if you're squeamish or anything like that, walk away. This is your warning. This is an autopsy photo of JFK. Most of the autopsy photos that you see gets him at an angle down here. It isn't from up here. But it's clear to me that he was shot from the front and it went out the back. I think that they have to think we're crazy to think that, and my mind goes here too with this. Can you imagine? Lee Harvey Oswald had 2 daughters. Morena was pregnant with Rachel when he was killed. During school, when this assassination was covered, you know they had to be sitting there hearing their dad being talked about. And yeah, I thought of it like that. What must it have been like for them? And his oldest daughter said that they held their birth certificates and their social security numbers. Oh, you've got the report, Duchess. Come up here, honey. One thing that also happened is they lost his brain. Did you all know that? Did you all know the whole government done went and lost President Kennedy's brain? Okay. Put a 1 in chat if you knew that. Flies, put a 2 in it. So you didn't know it, Flies? Yeah, they lost it. They lost his brain, Michelle. They did. And I mean, the average Joe, maybe. But the President of the United States, now, that also goes, some people think that it happened because Robert Kennedy had it took, because JFK had Addison's disease and he was on so much medicine that he didn't want it to leak out. But I don't think so. I don't think so. And there is also, let me see if I can find that right quick, because you wouldn't believe me if I told you, which most of you probably done heard it. But just a second. I'm going to see if I can find it. There is a phone call of LBJ and Hoover. Now, Hoover could not stand Robert Kennedy. Oh, no, you can't be doing that. Just a second, y'all. Gotta get my charger. Now, come on. Whew. Phone call. I'm sorry I'm all over the place, y'all, but I mean, I planned on having it all planned out, but I think this is it. I think this might be it. Let's see here. Okay, well, I'll let you watch it too. Just a second.
And FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover on November 25, 1963 at 10:30
Okay, Dutchie.
a.m.
Mr. Hoover on 2383. Mr. Hoover, 2383.
383, let me find it. That's number
The fourth.
two things. Apparently some lawyer in justice is lobbying with the Post because that's where the suggestion came from for this presidential commission, which we think would be very bad, and put it right in the White House. And we can't be checking up on every shoot and scrape in the country, but they've gone to the Post now to get them an editorial, and the Post is calling up saying they're going to run an editorial if we don't do things. Now, we're going to do two things.
I don't know if this is the right one or not, but just a second.
I want you to know about it. One, we believe that the way to handle this is, as we said yesterday, your suggestion that you put every facility at your command and making a full report to the Attorney General, and then they make it available to the country in whatever form may seem desirable, right, as well as the President. Second, well, the state, it's a state matter too, and the state attorney general is young and able and prudent and very cooperative with you. Yeah. He's going to run a court of inquiry, which is provided for by state law, and he's going to have associated with him the most outstanding jurists in the country. But he's a good conservative fellow, and we don't start invading local jurisdictions that way. And
I don't think that one's the one. There's one where he was asking. Okay, one thing that is a little, well, I haven't heard very many people talk about is the way the motorcade was set up. Kennedy's vehicle was supposed to be the seventh in line, but at the last minute, he became the second car in line. Is this one it? Which would make sense if they was trying to set it up for him to, for nobody else to be shot. You don't want other cars in front of it. Just a second. Is this it? Okay, we'll do this one. The Secret Service.
Yes.
J. Edgar Hoover on 2192.
Are you familiar with this proposed group that they're trying to put together on this study of your report and other things? Two from the House, two from the Senate, somebody from the court, a couple outsiders.
No, I haven't heard of that. I've seen the reports on the Senate investigating committee that they've been talking about.
Yeah, well, we think if we don't have, I want to get by just with your filing your report.
I think it'd be very, very bad to have a rash of investigations.
Well, the only way we can stop them is probably to on a high level want to evaluate your report.
Yeah.
And put somebody that's pretty good on it from that can select out of the government and tell the House and Senate not to.
Which ends up selecting Earl Warren, who Kennedy had fired when he came into office, you all.
Go ahead with the investigation. Yes, because we got there and get a bunch of television going, and I thought
It'd be a three-ring circus.
Yes. What do you think about Allen Dulles?
I think he would be a good man.
Okay, there's Dutch. Hello, honey.
Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm good. Other than my cow paw. I'm sore, but I'm good.
This is very interesting to look back at this. I mean, because when you started, I figured you were going to talk about the autopsy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got the autopsy?
I do. I it's in the National Archives for JFK. And so when you were going to I was like, I bet she's going to show that picture. I just knew you were going to show it. Because it doesn't make any sense, and I find it interesting that the FBI says they made 25,000 interviews and still determined that it was that Oswald acted alone. I love you too, babe.
It's they FBI. They've already come out. There's statements on the internet that you can see where they were involved in his assassination.
My husband says that they were involved in his assassination. So
yeah, they've admitted to it throughout the years too.
It was but
the FBI still stands by that
Freedom of Information Act that brought it out.
Yeah, they released 1,500 articles, but I do have the autopsy report. Do you want me to share it?
Yes.
Okay. Hang on, let me share my screen.
I think it is ridiculous, though, that they would even think he could plan that when they changed the route 2 days before the 22nd. Well, it's changed 3 days. It was published 2 days.
I'll have to look on my phone. I don't know how well you guys can see that.
Okay, just a second. I'll add it. Okay, where is it? Come on.
And you can take the Fly's comment down off the screen. People might be able to see it better.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I have to select the just that actual screen. Yeah, like you just did to take us off there to blow it up. But you guys can see it says the autopsy report and supplemental report on November 22nd of 1963 at 1300 Central Standard Time is the date and hour that it was documented that he passed away, and the autopsy was performed November 22nd at 20 hours Eastern Standard Time, full autopsy. And it just kind of goes through, and it says gunshot wound to the head is the cause of death, right there. He was 46 years old, male. And then, but in this upper right hand corner right here, it talks about what happened. That 3 shots were heard. The president fell forward, bleeding from the head. But we just watched the video.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because when I was watching you play that video, I was thinking, I just looked at that autopsy report not too long ago. And I was thinking, that is not what the autopsy report says. And then it talks here as it goes on down. It says, shortly following the wounding of the 2 men, the car was driven to Parkland Hospital in Dallas, and that Dr. Perry noted the massive wound of the head and the second, much smaller wound of the low anterior neck and approximately the midline. They did a tracheostomy by extending the latter wound. At this point, there was bloody air noted bubbling from the wound, and an injury to the right lateral wall of the trachea was observed, because they're saying like he was like shot in the neck, like there was an entrance and an exit wound, basically. And that he was hit twice, according to this.
Does the autopsy say he had a brain? Did they have a brain during this autopsy?
Well, let's look and see what it says here. Let's see. Here's where it talks on page 3. If you look right here, where my little mouse is, this is where it talks about the wound. 7x4 millimeter oval wound, measured to be 14 centimeters from the tip of the right acromion process and 14 centimeters below the tip of the right mastoid process. That's basically like the jaw. And then it talks about situating the low anterior neck at approximately the level of the 3rd and 4th tracheal rings, which is in your throat. There's a 6.5 centimeter long transverse wound with widely gaping irregular edges. I can't even imagine what this man suffered. And then situate on the anterior chest wall in the nipple line are bilateral 2 centimeter long recent transverse surgical incisions so in other words, it's going through talking about all the different surgery marks that he would have had. And then here's the missile wounds. Large irregular defect of the scalp and skull on the right, involving chiefly in parietal bone, but extending somewhat into the temporal and occipital regions. In this region, there's an actual absence of scalp and bone, producing a defect which measures approximately 13 centimeters in the greatest diameter. From the irregular margins of the above scalp, defect tears extend into the stellate fashion into the more and less intact scalp as follows. And then it talks about the as far as like from the right inferior, because he was shot on the right, it says, to the right ear. And then it talks about like the margin from the forehead, approximately 4 centimeters above the right orbital ridge. So that meant he was, to me, that says right there on B. He shot right above his eye.
Yeah.
And then he's got a left margin of the main defect across the midline anterior laterally from a distance of approximately 8 centimeters. So, I mean, we're talking about like, it's a lot of these bullets, the entrance wound is clean, but the exit wound, it's a mess.
And we saw that with that autopsy photo.
And here it says the brain is removed and preserved for further study following formalin fixation.
And they lost it.
I don't think it probably says that on there, but
no, but I mean, they did lose the brain.
That's terrible. I mean, can you even imagine? And this just goes through, them doing the actual autopsy and what they found.
I mean, to me, that
They submitted 3 fragments of skull bone, placed in the custody of Agent Roy Kellerman of the U.S. Secret Service, who executed a receipt therefor. That's attached, it says. The fatal missile entered the skull above and to the right of the external occipital protuberance. That is being shot from the front, y'all. That's not being shot from the back. A portion of the projectile transversed the cranial cavity in a posterior anterior direction, which is back. Well, it says back to front right there.
now another thing is one of the Secret Service men actually pulled a gun because the Parkland Hospital in the corner there said the autopsy needed to be done in Dallas because that's where the incident happened at. But they wanted to take him back to Washington, D.C. And they
Right.
did. I mean, they broke protocol and everything to take him back. And they lost the brain. They lost a whole brain. Another thing is all the people that came forward, like the witness accounts, all those folks are dead.
Yeah.
Um,
And see this
I was
other
gonna
the other bullet right here on this second one, it says it entered the right superior posterior thorax, which is your chest right above the scapula, and traversed the soft tissues of the suprascapular and supraclavicular portion of the base of the right side of the neck. And this missile produced contusions of the right apical parietal pleura and of the apical portion of the right upper part of the lung. And the missile contused the strap muscles of the right side of the neck and damaged the trachea and made its exit through the anterior surface of the neck. I mean, and then it said, in addition, it's our opinion that the wound of the skull produced such extensive damage to the brain as to preclude the possibility of the deceased surviving this injury.
And now keep in mind that first bullet was supposed to hit him in the back, come out the neck, go into Governor Connolly's shoulder, go down, hit him in the hand, made a sharp left, and went into his left leg. You can't make this up. And that is why they called it the magic bullet. Now, anybody that shoots a gun knows a bullet goes one direction only, and that's straight. It don't do no curving unless it ricochets off something.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, we're talking about flesh. I want to show this right here too, Duchess. Just a second.
Okay. Yeah, I'll stop sharing mine.
Okay.
I just thought y'all would think that was pretty interesting.
It is. It is. I mean, and then.
And that's not all
right
of
here.
it. There is a whole gross description of the brain that's also on the autopsy report too.
Okay. Here we go. Now listen to what has happened to all these people. Now, some of these things I agree with. Some of these things I don't. I'll stop and tell you. Well, they say he went crazy. There's no sound. Can you hear it, Duchess?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, well, I be doggone. Just a second. Let me see here.
All I can hear is my dog snoring.
Okay. See if I can fix it. Okay, history. There we go. Let me make sure that's the short one. Okay. Now, entire. Give some sound to this. Okay. Yeah. Am I the only person that talks to herself like that? Yes, Crystal. Yes, you are.
Murders isn't quite sure, but does say some things look out of the ordinary. His name is Tom O'Neill, and he just had a book come out after researching the Manson murders for over 20 years. In a podcast, he said this about Ruby's meeting with Louis Jolyon Jolly West, a man that for a long time denied he was working with the CIA on mind control program MK-Ultra. O'Neill said, "My most important finding is that a CIA contracted agent or researcher for mind control became..."
I guess I should ask. Can you hear it now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
His
Well, I
doctor,
can.
right, testified and told his story, and then he goes crazy. The problem is no one who worked in MK-Ultra will talk about it. It would have remained a complete secret had the CIA got away with destroying all related files. We know that just before Ruby was to testify to the Warren Commission, West visited him in his jail cell. No other people were present. West said Ruby had gone mad and was a paranoid, rambling mess of a man. We must remember here that prior to this, when West wrote to the CIA's mind control master, Sidney Gottlieb, he said his specialty was inducing insanity in people without their awareness.
That's interesting. Now, I haven't looked into that enough to even have an opinion on that part of it.
We know that after Ruby shot Oswald, some strange things happened. The police pinned him to the floor, and out of his mouth came these words: "What am I doing here? What are you guys jumping on me for?" It was as if he wasn't in control of himself. A psychiatrist later said that Ruby had suffered from a fugue state with subsequent amnesia. A fugue state is characterized by someone who suddenly loses their sense of themselves, having a kind of breakdown where they don't know what they're doing. Remember, no one had any idea that West had been working with the CIA on mind control. West tried very hard to get involved with Ruby, at one time asking Judge Joe B. Brown to appoint him on the case. According to documents that were found by Tom O'Neill a long time after the trial, West had been asked by someone to work on the case, but he never said who. At first, the judge refused to give West access to Ruby, but with some effort, West insinuated himself in the case. It was thought that perhaps West, with all the skills he had, could help Ruby recall the day he shot Oswald. On April 26, 1964, West boarded a plane and went to see Ruby. Not long after, West came out of Ruby's cell and stated the man had a complete psychotic break. West said that Ruby was positively insane. No one knows and will likely never know what happened in that cell. In a sworn affidavit, West wrote that Ruby was hearing things and seeing things, going as far as to hide under his table because he thought all the Jews in the U.S. would be slaughtered. West said that Ruby said he'd seen his brother tortured, horribly mutilated, castrated, and burned in the street outside the jail. West wrote that Ruby could still hear the screams of Jewish children being boiled alive. It sounded like a really bad trip. After that, any other doctor that met with Ruby came to the same conclusion. He had suddenly gone mad. Still, doctors who talked with Ruby before West had seen him had said he was absolutely fine, not crazy at all. West wrote, "Tonight, my own findings make it clear that there has been an acute change in the patient's condition since these earlier studies were carried out." A doctor that had seen Ruby before and after he had met with West was astounded by the change. His name was Dr. William
Okay, I'm
Beavers.
gonna get it to this part. Ruby don't
But
fascinate
it's
me.
considered unlikely because of the protected situation. Obviously, Beavers could not have had an inkling that West was involved in a project that forced powerful drugs on unwitting victims and tried to mess with their minds. A good point is, what if he had known about West's involvement with the CIA's dark program? He probably would have looked into the matter further. What's even stranger is the fact that Ruby was visited by Dr. Werner Tudor in 1965. He made an evaluation and sent the notes to West so they could be submitted to court.
Okay, let me get it to here.
One day, and not long after, we're all dead. Number 5, enter at your own risk. The journalist Bill Hunter received some acclaim for writing 3 Days in Dallas after the JFK assassination. He also wrote about Ruby shooting Oswald. He was one of the few people that actually got permission to have a look around Ruby's apartment right after he shot Oswald. In April 1964, Hunter was sitting at a desk in Long Beach Police HQ and he was shot. The gun of a policeman named Crichton Wiggins had apparently accidentally gone off, and a bullet had entered the chest of Hunter, killing him instantly. The officer said he had dropped the gun. Investigators soon found out that there was no way that Wiggins was telling the truth. He admitted that he hadn't dropped the gun at all, but had been playing around with it when it accidentally fired. It's believed Hunter was still working on the case, and that's why his death is seen as suspicious by some of the JFK conspiracy fraternity. Ruby had been living with a man named George Senator. We've seen the court transcripts, so this is very much a fact. Senator said this in a court about Ruby. He was a good, sound American citizen, and politics, he never messed around with that. He never messed around politically at all. The majority was connected with the music industry, the nightlife, his club, his competitors, what they were doing. It was because of Senator that Hunter was allowed into Ruby's room. Also alongside was Dallas Times Herald Jim Cothey and Ruby's attorney Tom Howard. On the 21st of September 1964, while writing a book on assassination, Cothey mysteriously died. Some sources say
they were too.
no one knows what happened. Time magazine in 1966 presented the conspiracy by saying the journalist was well known for hanging out with thugs. Police at the time said the motive was somehow connected to homosexuality, but didn't expand on that. We found a news clipping from back then with a headline, "Newsman's Death Termed Murder." The police captain said this in the report. He could have been killed by a karate blow to the neck or had fallen and struck his neck on a table or a bedstand in the room where his body was found. The apartment
Okay, so everybody that went into Ruby's apartment later on, they're dead.
had been ransacked, and there were signs of a struggle. Police in the end said it was a burglary that had gone wrong, although people have said it had something to do with the notes the journalist had written about the assassination or what he knew about Ruby. 1 year later, Howard also died. His death was ruled a heart attack, although, as people are quick to point out, there was never an autopsy. Still, the New York Times wrote that he had died of a massive coronary infection, stating, Mr. Howard had been ill for several days but continued his law practice. He was just 48. As you'll now see, not only men tied to the case died. Number 4, was this woman really going to crack the case? One journalist...
This is, now this right here, I've looked into this. This woman, Dorothy, she actually made a claim that in 5 days, she was going to blow the case wide open. Listen what
actually
happens
got to chat with Ruby, and her name was Dorothy Kilgolphin. She was not so sure about the conclusions that the Warren Commission came up with, and she let it be known. She also published some of the commission's findings before they were officially released to the public. What happened to her? On November 8th, 1965, she was found dead in her apartment in Manhattan. Prior to that, she had written that the CIA and the Mafia had worked together. Some people have also said that she was a CIA asset. After the assassination, she reportedly told her friends that she was going to crack the case. She said to one person, "In 5 more days, I'm going to bust this case wide open." By all accounts, she had given the first draft of her book to Florence Smith, her friend, and the wife of the ambassador to Cuba. When Kilgolphin's body was found, it was determined that she had died from an overdose of booze and barbiturates. According to some sources, she was found in a room she didn't go in often. She had a book in her lap that she'd already finished, and her reading glasses, which she couldn't read without, were in another room. As for Florence Smith, did she have those notes? No, is the answer. She died 1 day after Kilgolphin of a cerebral hemorrhage. She was 45.
Do you hear this?
No book or notes were found. Still, she had reportedly been ill for some time and had only just gotten out of the hospital. There is evidence that Smith was friends with JFK and Mrs. Kennedy, and it's never been revealed where the New York Times got the information from about her illness and stay in the hospital. That's just what the paper wrote in her obituary. The next one has had conspiracy theorists talking for years, but they might have been seeing things that just weren't there. Number 3, the Benavides brothers. Then there were the brothers, Edward Benavides and Domingo Benavides. Domingo was one of the witnesses who saw police officer J.D. Tippit get shot after the assassination. Some sources say he testified that the shooter looked nothing like Oswald, but from what we can see, he just gave a vague description that could have been a lot of people. Some sources say that a dark presence feared that he would blow the lid on something, so he needed to be taken out. But he wasn't killed. Instead, his brother, who looked like him, was shot in a tavern in Dallas. But, and this is important, the brother was shot after the Warren Commission had people testify in court. Conspiracy theorists have argued that he was shot during the investigation.
It is crazy, Michelle.
But we've actually seen his death certificate. Indeed, he was murdered on February 16th, 1965.
Now listen to this. He was right-handed. He was shot behind his left ear.
This means he couldn't have been taken out accidentally by someone who wanted to kill his brother. It's just another death that you could say is the type of thing to start making lights go off in someone's head. Now let's look how one official thought that the CIA took out JFK. Number 2, The insiders. Did a man who worked for the CIA have extensive knowledge about the assassination and know that his own team had done the job? The man was named Gary Underhill. According to some books, after the assassination, he said this to a friend: "You're going to Spain? That's the best thing to do. I've got to get out of the country too. This country is too dangerous for me now. I've got to get on a boat too. I'm really afraid for my life. Oswald is a patsy. They've set him up. It's too much. The police have done something outrageous. They've killed the president." The CIA denied that this man worked for them. But then the CIA, it has to be said, has always been very sparing with the truth. It's a fact that Underhill worked in the military intelligence service, so he is a person of interest. It's also stated by credible sources that he did actually say those things after the assassination. Shortly after, he was found dead in his house. According to the District of Columbia Department of Public Health, his certificate of death dated May 8, 1964 read that he shot himself in head with an automatic pistol. Some people have remarked that he had been shot behind the left ear, and the gun was discovered in his left hand. He was right-handed. But then, if he did kill himself, maybe he was an unorthodox kind of guy. Also, would CIA hitmen be that stupid? Now, we turn to the FBI and an agent named Gary Bannister. This guy was a serious anti-communist who later went on to form his own private investigation agency. He was accused by one of his colleagues of knowing about the hit on JFK being an inside job. This guy told a lot of people about that, and he became a big part of the investigation. Bannister died soon after in 1964 from coronary thrombosis. He was 63. Number 1. The lover. According to various mainstream sources, a woman named Mary Pinchot Meyer was a mistress of JFK and a friend of his wife. She was
We know he had a couple of those, didn't he?
also a good buddy of the wife of a very high-ranking CIA guy. In 1964, she was murdered, and her death to this day remains a mystery. Her affair with the president had been a big secret, and so that information only came out later. As for her death, it was said the shooter must have had extensive training with a firearm. An African-American man named Ray Crump was charged with the murder, but when the case went to trial, he was acquitted. So why would someone have taken this woman out execution style? It's well known that she kept a diary, and in it were things that some people thought the world didn't need to know. After she was killed, people went in search of that diary. One of them was a CIA agent who was caught trying to break into her apartment, according to journalist Ben Bradley. But so what if the diary exposed the president? So what if he and his mistress smoked weed together in the White House? Did that really qualify for her execution? Well, some of the people believe that this woman knew too much, maybe more than has been let on. And that's why she had to go. It's also worth noting that after the Warren Commission came up with its report, she was very skeptical. Maybe that was one of the reasons why the agency was wiretapping her phone. This is all true, and you have to admit her death and the timing of it do sound quite suspicious. Now, you need to watch the JFK assassination, What Really Happened, or have a look at Insane Ways USA trying to
Is that not wild? I think Dutchie is muted. But
I'm here.
Is that not wild?
Yeah, it is.
And I'll tell you something that gets me more than anything. I can remember when you could get on YouTube and you could find a lot more than you can now. Like, there was a cop, a Dallas police officer. He was saying that the shots come from the grassy knoll. He stood on that hill until he died, saying that that's where the shots were coming from. I think they were coming from several places. Because you don't really have to be a great shot if a lot of people shooting. You know what I mean? Especially from a triangular point of view. But he went on to do interviews, and he said people were messing with his vehicle. They were following him. And, of course, everybody was calling him a nut, right? Well, he ends up being shot in the back of the head in his apartment. Most all of the people, with the exception of Beverly Oliver. Now, the whole time, she is the lady that was taking the film on the opposite side of the street. You know, there's two films that you can see.
Right.
One's Zapruder's, and then Beverly Oliver's is on the other side. She's the lady that you see standing 9 times out of 10 in the photos from that day. But she did all kinds of interviews saying that she was afraid people would kill her. But now she's one of the only ones that I can think of right off that wasn't killed. Does that make sense? She stayed in the She stayed in front of the camera talking about it.
Well, Nix is the one that had the actual film footage of that day, and the frames that he submitted his original footage, I think, and I did put that in the chat earlier, because in his footage you can see Zapruder can be seen in the footage standing on a pedestal, but in the images which were enhanced in 1970 may also show the image of a second gunman, according to some people. And days after that, JFK was shot, Nix sold his film to the United Press International, but when they gave it back to him, they didn't give him his original, they gave him a copy. And no one seems to know whatever happened to the original. So his granddaughter, Gail Nix Jackson, is suing the National Archives and is accusing the government of mishandling the film. And she's been on this quest since 1988, and she just wants to find the truth and the answers, and she wants to find her grandfather's film. And I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. Also, another thing that's real interesting to me, I want to think it was about 15 years ago, maybe not quite that long. A man that was in prison came out and said he was a part of JFK's assassination. His name was James Files. And he claimed, he told what kind of rifle he used, that he used mercury rounds. He told the exact spot, where, and he said that he worked for Sam Giancana, a mob boss. Now, one thing about it was, though, is he gave details that made perfect sense in my opinion. Like the day before the assassination, he met with Oswald. He didn't say he would want no part of it. And he was citing this firearm that he was using, and he would have Oswald pick up the bullets, the shell casings from it. And he claims that's how Oswald got the gunpowder on his hands, the residue.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw they had a JFK 2023 release on some additional documents this year, and those are the ones that I actually haven't seen. It looks like there's some proposed security deletions manuscript and gallery proof of undercover memoirs by an American agent. Some kind of notification of establishment of cover backstop. I don't know. There's a bunch of different articles. There's quite a few. And it's supposed to all have to do with JFK. I didn't know if you had looked at any of those that had been dropped this year. There was, golly, I want to say just this year in 2023, I think in April, they released 422 documents. In April, they released 355 documents. In May, they released 502 documents. On my sister's birthday in June, they released 290 documents. And in June 27th, just 2 weeks later, they released 1,103 documents. And August the 24th, they released 21 more documents. And they are all laid out in a huge Excel file. And that is just the 2023 additional JFK assassination records. And I didn't know if
I haven't got to see those, but I will be.
Let me tell you, that's almost 3,000 documents, if not more, just this year alone. I'm very curious to know what's in that. It's going to take us months to get through it.
Maybe we'll
We
have to
might have
do
to
live
do a
streams, go
JFK
over so
live
many.
once a week and look at X amount of files for an hour, and then like in a week come back, and because I don't even know if I can keep up with it all. I don't even know how can you have that many documents that you just released this year?
Well, the thing about it is, and think of this, no matter what people want to say, I mean, President Trump is who pushed having the documents released in the first place.
Night flies.
Good night, flies. I mean, he really did push that, to get the documents unsealed. But look how many years it went. It was 13 years, people, before they ever released. And let's be real, they didn't release this Zapruder film. It was stole, and that man released it.
I mean, in these documents that I'm just looking through some of these while you're talking, and I mean, it's got the DCI meetings with President Johnson, January 1st of 63. It talks about, I mean, these different projects, stuff that was withheld about the AMLOUTS project, the AMSATA project. I have no idea what that even is. These are all CIA DDCI files. Chief meetings with Mr. Paul Wallach, chief counsel of the senator, declassifications of Warren documents. And I mean, there is a ton of those. Restricted documents from the director of the CIA, how the JFK Assassination Records Review Board. I mean, it's just got all kinds of, I mean, it's a variety of stuff. Like, I was just trying to get a feel for like, what all of this could possibly, be about. What does San Salvador, what does a San Salvador meeting have to do with Cuban deflectors and JFK? Is that what they were thinking, that there was something going on with that? I mean, these are all from 1964.
Well,
I just wonder why they're releasing like all of these.
Oswald was a defector, which is another thing all in itself. He denounced his U.S. citizenship and then just walks back into the United States without question.
Yeah, because I see here there's some personnel files that they're releasing also. They release a CIA personnel file on Thomas Caseson, William Harvey. They release a CIA file on Ann Goodpasture, the whole National Democratic Party. Don't even know. There's not
William
even a date
Harvey.
on that. A CIA file on James Walton Moore. Like, who are these people? Guy Vitale, James O'Connell, B.N. Hidalgo. Like, stop me at any time. Like, I mean, the names are just going on. And I'm just like, what does this have to do with JFK? Like, are we going down a rabbit hole? I'm just curious.
In my opinion, it sounds to me, I haven't looked at those documents, but I know in the other ones, I saw a pattern of them putting a bunch of nonsense.
That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, just to kind of throw people off because they don't think you're going to sift through 1,500 pages. You know what I mean? That's what the first one was. This old gal did. But I
think you just got to you've got to open every single document to see. Here it says that the NARA, which is National Archives and Records Administration, is processing previously withheld JFK assassination related records to comply with President Biden's memorandum for the heads of executive departments and agencies on the temporary certification regarding disclosure of information in certain records related to the assassination of President JFK, requiring disclosure of releasable records by June 30th of 2023. NARA worked in concert with agencies to jointly review the remaining redactions in 3,648 documents in compliance with the President's directive. That's how
I
many
think,
documents
in
there are.
my opinion, this is my opinion on a lot of the records that's been released. You've had how many years to alter them?
Exactly.
I mean, Michelle hit it dead on the head on here. I mean, why not just
That's why I dropped the link,
release
because I
them when
want
it
you guys
happens?
to see it. You know, I mean, I think it's important.
Jason says that he thinks the CIA was involved. I absolutely do too. And I'll tell you, I think LBJ, he had the most to gain.
Yeah, there was some. It looks like they interviewed him quite a few times. I mean, I encourage y'all to go over there and look at it if you know, need to do some nighttime reading to go to sleep. I encourage you to go over there and just look through some of this stuff, because I mean, they're thinking you're not going to want. Nobody's going to look at it, but there's going to be people that look at it. I promise you.
Now,
I'm gonna
another
look
thing
at
that
it.
I've watched is LBJ's mistress, Madeline Brown. She came out years later and did a full-on, I mean, it's 2 parts interview, over an hour long on each one of them. And yes, I did listen to that. She said there was a to-do, that's what she called it, but I guess like a big get-together the night before Kennedy's assassination.
Yeah, she
And
was Swedish, right? His mistress.
and she said that she heard LBJ, he went into and Nixon was there. He went into a room with Nixon and a bunch of other men. She names them off, though. I mean, she had the mind like quick wit. But said when he come out, he said, those Kennedys will never make a fool out of me again. And in this same interview, her son, she had a son with LBJ, and he was kind of kept a secret. I mean, and don't get me wrong, she was not dogging President Johnson. She wasn't. She was like building him up, and how she could, I have no idea. Well, I think she told him a whole bunch in that interview that she didn't intend to. But
well, I mean, let's face it, JFK had quite a few affairs. I mean, he was linked with Marilyn Monroe. Judith Exner, I think, was another lady that he was with. Inga Arvad was one of them, and Anita Ekberg apparently had a thing for Swedish Norwegian women.
His
I don't
secretary.
know. Yeah, the Ellen Romsnick, Jean Tierney, she was an actress.
But now I'm talking about Lyndon Baines Johnson's mistress.
Oh, well, I'm talking about JFK. Like, he had his share too, I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah. But he said,
it's a whole thing. I mean, he had an affair with...
Get this. This will blow your mind. Her son found out who his dad was. Decided he was going to sue him for back child support. And guess what happens? Her son was murdered.
Who are we talking about?
LBJ's mistress, Madeline Brown, had a son with Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yeah.
And when the son got old enough to sue him himself. He was suing him and he turned up dead. Sure enough. She told him, don't go there. That's dangerous. I know these people. But you think if somebody, and in my opinion, I'd say he was the very bird, had him silenced, would go as far as to harm their own kid, you know good and well that he didn't care a bit to set something up to become president.
Well, you know, there was an interview, I think, where remember when Barbara Walters passed away?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was showing a tribute to her. Okay. And it was and it just made me think about it because it was showing different people that she had interviewed, right?
Yeah.
And it showed that she was interviewing Lady Bird, his wife. And during that little clip, it showed Barbara Walters asking her about the affairs. And Lady Bird said something like, Lyndon just loved people and women are people. And I was like, what? Like, that is...
That is not normal right there.
That is not normal. And you can find it. I'm sure if you go look up the Barbara Walters interview, I'm sure you can find her asking her that. But it was something like that. Like it was her answer was, I was just like, what just happened? Is she literally just not caring that?
Okay.
I don't know.
It was
Maybe
the Clint Murchison's meeting is what you can find it on. It is an hour, 21 minutes and 25 seconds on YouTube. I'll show what it looks like here. But you all, it's a long one, but I do highly recommend watch this. It is very telling.
a really good channel I've watched about the JFK assassination too that I like. They have about 104,000 subscribers. It's called America's Untold Stories. And there are just two guys, you know, that talk about different stuff. I mean, they're really cool, but they have a whole section about JFK, and it's pretty interesting.
Let me see here. Let me do this like this.
Is this guy on YouTube that you're sharing with us?
Yeah, it's Madeline
cool.
Brown. It's the Clint. I'm putting the link to it in the chat because it's a long one. I mean, but she tells in that about her son. She tells about the meeting the day before Kennedy's assassination. She talks about the high rollers that she talks about how she met LBJ. But she really gives a lot of details and about what happened the day before. And she even talks about people that say they wasn't even in Dallas was at this meeting.
Right. Well, the H.L. Hunt, he was one of the guys on the list that I said they were releasing his CIA file.
Yeah.
I see there's some videos when I went to look up Clint's channel. The profile of Clint Murchison Jr.
Yeah.
When I pull that up, there's another video that comes up that says H.L. Hunt and JFK's assassination.
Is it the one where he admits that he was in on JFK's assassination?
Oh, this was like a year ago. This channel that it's on is called Stephen Hager. But that was the name of the, and H.L. Hunt is he was one of the richest men in the world, by the way. He tried to corner the market on silver. He got busted down, which is the same thing that happened to Clint Murchison. If you don't know who these guys are, like they're like Texas oil titans.
Yeah.
Okay, along with Fred Koch, and only Fred Koch is the one that survived. You know, I mean, the Texas oil crowd has long been associated with JFK's assassination. And those people would be the paymasters. You know what I'm
And
saying?
Hunt
They're the
was
people
part
that
of
would
the
have paid to
CIA.
have it done. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's why those names come up, like them releasing the CIA files on all of these people. It's because these people are very well-to-do rich people that they
Oh,
think.
yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm interested to look at like who all these other people are, because some of these names I didn't know, but some of them I did recognize, like the Clint Murchison and the H.L. Hunt. You know, that's a Texas oil heir. I mean,
And
they
to
were
think, though,
titans.
all of these people was at that one meeting, along with Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she says he comes out of that meeting and he says, those Kennedys will never make me look like a fool again. Now tell me that. And then the next day, they changed the order of how the vehicles are going to come through the motorcade. Kennedy's car was moved from being the seventh car, which makes sense because usually you want to see the most important person at the end of the motorcade, right?
Yeah.
To the second one. Not only that, but the driver of Kennedy's vehicle, his driver passed away 2 weeks before he arrived in Dallas. So this was a new driver for him. He had drove that route before, but it was with Roosevelt, maybe. But regardless, he was a new driver for Kennedy.
Right.
So when you put all those missing pieces, and there is also a video where they're leaving Love Field, and you can tell that they're telling some of the Secret Service to stay back, and they look really, really confused.
It's all very orchestrated in my mind, and you know, just to set the scene about why the Texas oil titans, like, think about it. Who do you think built the National Football League? Does anybody in the chat know? I bet Jason knows. Oil tycoons.
Yeah.
They funded the NFL. You know who the first owner of the Dallas Cowboys was, right?
Bush?
Clint
I'm
Murchison.
guessing.
Clint
Oh, okay.
Murchison. Clint Murchison. The very person we're talking about's son, I believe, was the very first owner. Their family was the first owner of the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking about a lot of money. These people can orchestrate a whole lot of people and pull strings to make something like this happen, because it takes people in powerful places to take down the president. I promise you. And you're not talking about like just hiring an assassination person to go out there with a gun and sit up there and do it. No, it takes everything falling into place. And when you know people, when you got money, you can make powerful moves. And that's why power and greed and all of those things, it is dangerous.
Very dangerous. Let me see here. Can you imagine, though, how Oswald's kids felt in school?
If I'm not mistaken, I think Clint Murchison was the first Dallas Cowboys owner. But that, like, when you talk about all these people that are connected back to Kennedy, people will do all kinds of crazy things. Yeah, Clinton Williams Murchison Jr. was a businessman and founder of the Dallas Cowboys football team, a son of Clem Murchison Sr., who made his first fortune in oil exploration, and became notorious for exploiting the sale of hot oil. The brothers inherited their father's wealth and business, in which he decided to go into real estate, development, construction, home building, restaurants, financing offshore pirate radio stations, and starting the Dallas Cowboys. It's like the mob, Jason, yes. It's just, it looks different. Wears big hats and all of that. Yeah. It just looks different.
Let me see here. Might be able to find this right quick.
Yeah, they're fancy. They're fancy.
They got the money to do it with, that's for sure, and they had the pool to do it with.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you'd be amazed at the people that are tied in together that you would have never thought are tied in together. Because it's all the things that you don't know. That's what makes people really nervous about the things going on in the world today, with war, with trusting our government about things going on, because, well, I don't have to explain it. I mean, y'all see it every day. It's hard to know if you can trust the very people that are running your country.
Well, I don't trust them.
Hell no.
Okay. I'm going to play this right here right quick. Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Let me have it. I want it. Being let out by Captain Fritz. There's the person.
Look how easy he makes it to him.
There is Lee. He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's the man with a gun. Absolute panic. Absolute panic here in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. Detectives have their guns drawn. There is no question about it. Oswald has been shot at point-blank range, fired into his stomach. He is shot. He is shot. Oswald. It is Oswald. Was that the man that shot the man, or do you know? That is the man that shot the man.
I mean,
yes, I pivoted from writing.
and when else have we ever saw that? A long nut makes it and kills the president. Then another long nut ends up killing that long nut. And you don't hear about it no more in history until that president's brother runs for office. Now, during one of the CIA's things was that they had in those first documents that was released, they had a mission to kill Castro. And guess what it involved? A long nut.
Yep.
I mean, almost to a T. I think so too. But I mean, I don't even understand how they expect American citizens to believe Oswald did it alone. Think about what knowledge he had to have. He would have had to been able to see the future like back October the 14th when Ruth Payne told him they were hiring at the Texas Depository. Then he would have had to been able to see the future to see they was going to change the route from going down Main Street, which would be completely away from where he was working 2 days beforehand. I mean, come on. To be able to plan that, he would have had to known all that.
Well, remember I told you there was all the documents about the Cubans?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just looking at some stuff and I saw that there was an article that said trying to see the date of this. The article in the original context was from 1977 in the New York Times. And it says a Dutch journalist said today he had told the House Assassinations Committee that the mysterious potential witness who allegedly committed suicide Tuesday had told him that Texas oilmen and anti-Castro Cubans had conspired with Lee Harvey Oswald to kill President Kennedy. And they called together some kind of press conference alleging a conspiracy to assassinate President Kennedy not only involved Mr. Oswald, but also George Day Morenshilt, who apparently shot himself in Palm Beach, Florida. I can't even say that name.
Of course he did.
Of course, because, I mean, just like he Epsteined himself. That's what we're going to call it, because it's still happening, y'all. It's still happening. Like, they were Epsteining themselves before Epsteined himself, okay? And then it says, the FBI and the CIA, H.L. Hunt, the late Texas oil millionaire, and Mr. Oswald assassins Jack Ruby. They all Epstein themselves. I mean, stop. I mean, listen, you cannot make this up, y'all.
No, you can't, but look at this chat.
Wait, let me go over here. Look at this chat, because I'm not even looking at chat. Wait a minute. Where's Rosie? I thought she wanted to hear this. Allie, the Democrats were hoes. Wait, I think somebody already said that back up in the chat. Jason, I did not have sex with that woman. Wait. Michelle. And which woman would that be? Because I need information. Allie,
Michelle's for McClinton,
and I don't breathe. Wait, you don't breathe? I can't. What is happening, Michelle? Don't smoke the cigar. Okay. Wait, did somebody start taking drugs in the chat? I mean, what happened? What happened?
Oh my God.
I think they were deterring from the fact that I was Epstein and everything there for a minute.
I just looked over and I
Allie,
see Allie.
Clinton.
I mean, Michelle, but I did not have sex.
Listen, you did it, Michelle. You're the one who said you slept with. You did not. Wait a minute. You did not sleep with that woman. Excuse me. I'm not going to say you slept with that woman because you specifically said that you did not. And I'm gonna believe you because you're my friend.
Michelle, your last name ain't Clinton, is it?
I mean, who knew that we could turn this conversation into a laughing moment? Poor JFK. I mean, God rest his soul. And then his son died. I mean,
yeah,
this poor family. I mean, but listen, I mean, JFK had like 9 girlfriends.
He got more than that, honey. And you know good and well we would have been his girlfriend too.
Well, I mean, he's not really my type, but I mean, Marilyn Monroe, Gene Tierney, I mean, Marlene Dietrich, listen, he had the hot women too. So he must have been putting it on them. That's all I know. I mean, but
Well, I mean,
his son was a good looking man for sure. That was terrible. I mean, this family can't catch a break. But if y'all don't think nefarious things don't happen in powerful places, I promise you. Like people they just don't want to see it. They don't want to admit it because it just seems so crazy that somebody in such a powerful place would do something so heinous and then go around and pretend like nothing happened at all, but it happens all the time.
now I think y'all are making a big misunderstanding here. We are comparing JFK to the men today, but he was actually a pretty good looking man for 1963 when everybody else was looking all
He's not
jacked
my
up.
type. His son was more my type. Like
And he was more
I
our
like the dark
age.
hair. He's more of a redheaded kind, and like I mean that's just not what like everybody has their type.
Well,
I mean, he just wasn't my type.
And wasn't there I'm saying was it like I don't know, but there was also a big feud between Hoover and Robert Kennedy.
Oh, yes. Oh, there certainly was. Wait a minute. He wasn't your type either, Jason? Wait a minute. Did you just call me Butchie? Screwball just called me Butchie. And I'm blind. Yes. See, Allie said yes, Junior. That was a sexy man right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was. He was a good looking man now.
For real. Hot
but
tea.
now I'm not.
I can say that because my husband went to bed. Shh.
Oh,
don't tell
dyslexic. I understand that completely. No, he was not.
Yes, he was. Don't argue with me. Michelle did not sleep with that woman. Okay? And I'm just going to stand on that.
Oh, that has cracked me up. I just looked over. We was all talking about the JFK, and then I was look over and I see Michelle.
I mean,
I did not have sex with
is it possible that there was a president that didn't have a side piece? I mean, I'm just asking. Put a 1 in the chat if you think there was a president that did not have a side piece. I mean, because it could have went all the way back to George, the first George of the whole country. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to establish a trend here because, I mean, I don't know. You never know what might have made somebody mad. Like, what if you was having an affair with somebody who somebody else was also having an affair with, and they got their fifis hurt? Men are crazy. I'm just saying. saying. You don't think Trump did? Okay, Michelle doesn't think Trump did.
Well, that's probably because he couldn't get nobody else, Michelle. Let's be for real. But Jefferson Davis, he had an affair with he had kids with one of his slaves. It has been said that Abraham Lincoln had more kids with his slaves than he did with his wife.
Facts.
I've said it before. If there was internet back in those days, you'd have found out all the tea on all of them.
Honey, our encyclopedias would be runneth over with bad things.
Their grandmas had some whorisms.
Yeah, they did have some whorisms for real. I mean, that was like a whole thing. I mean, like that's the whole origin of like my husband's family. Like his family is born out of slavery. I mean, white family that were slave owners, and then you have children that are born out of that, and they're basically outcast. You know, I mean, they have these derogatory terms. I mean, a lot of people think, I mean, mulatto is probably not a used term anymore, but that's what they were called on their census. You know, because and they weren't allowed to marry, they weren't allowed to have children with white people, although they could pass for white. You know, but that's not anybody's fault. Like, can you imagine having to go through something like that? That just seems so
Oh, goodness.
crazy to me. I mean, just even the cheating part, but like having to be born out of I don't know. It's really difficult, you know, to imagine like I don't know, the things that this country has gone through and there's just no telling the stuff that we have no idea about, you know. And I do think Republicans hide it better. I mean, but I'm sure that they still don't act right. They all still need to get right with Jesus. Most of
Amen.
them. I mean, I don't know that Ronald Reagan. I don't know that did he ever have an affair?
Oh, well, he probably did.
I
I don't
mean, he
know
was
why
a
he would
good-looking
give him
man
that.
too now, and he was an actor.
Yeah. Yep. But you remember when he was shot at?
I do. I do remember that.
Didn't his Secret Service act completely different than Kennedy's? I mean, what was his name?
That guy
Allen
jumped
or
right in
something
front of
like that.
him.
He took a bullet for him.
He did. I mean, that they went into action like they were ready. Now, what happened with Kennedy? It just looked very orchestrated to me.
Yeah, me too. And nothing can make me think that they didn't have something to do with it.
Yeah.
But I started out learning just like everybody else, you know, what the school will tell you. And that was not it at all it. I thought I had this saved on here. I was going to show Jens my documented grandmother, but I think it's on a hard drive.
Well, in this article, it says that this Mr. Altman, he testified saying that there may have been a $50,000 contract out to kill the president, and that he had met an oil worker who said he had been offered the contract. And then after he testified, apparently Richardson Pryor, a Democrat of North Carolina, who was the chairman of the subcommittee investigating the Kennedy assassination, was asked if he believed the story. And he said he spoke on some very specific things that can be corroborated, but not as clear on others. And then I don't know. This is very interesting because I don't know. Now it's saying that this Mr. de Mohrenschildt, however you say his crazy name, he had a history of mental problems. And that if he ever claimed to have any relationship with H.L. Hunt, those claims must be viewed accordingly. How convenient.
Well, who else had mental problems? Jack Ruby.
Yep.
According to.
And he also told the NBC radio that Mr. Altman did that the reason the Cubans wanted to kill President Kennedy was that they thought they had a blood debt to settle. They thought that President Kennedy had betrayed them at the Bay of Pigs. And he said that Mr. de Mohrenschildt, or whatever his name is, had told him that he knew, in fact, who killed Mr. Kennedy because an unspecified number of Cubans were supposed to be shooting at the same time Mr. Oswald did. And that Mr. M guy was born in Russia and apparently befriended Mr. Oswald and his wife Marina before the assassination. And Miss Oswald is also Russian born.
Wow.
And he says that this Mr. Mohrenscheidt indicated to him that he was very strongly that his ties upwards were to H.L. Hunt, to the oil titan, and downstairs to Lee Harvey Oswald. He was like the middleman that connected them. I don't think
See,
I've
now,
ever read that before, but I thought that was very interesting. And I'm going to drop that New York Times article in the chat for good measure, because in case anybody wants to look at it, I just feel like I think all things need to be considered, but apparently they don't consider that because he might have some mental illness.
that
But
is
does he?
jacked
But
up.
does he really have mental illness, or are they just saying that because they have to find a reason, or he's got to die too? Because hadn't
Well,
enough people already died concerning this? I mean, it seems like everybody's just at a whim.
everybody
Something
died.
happens, and then Epstein happens.
Well, they still doing it. I mean, it ain't changed none.
And it's scary.
It is. It is really. You've got. It's scary anytime that a president can be shot in front of everybody and their granny, and half the United States at the beginning believe it happened just how they said because of the way it was presented. But at the beginning of this live, we watched one of the first news broadcasts, and it told a completely different story. I mean, their accounts of what happened that day was completely different. And like I said, I believe they would have more of a recollection of what happened better then than they would 50 years later.
Yeah.
But that's my little
Well, this has been very
hillbilly
interesting,
opinion.
to talk about this because I've learned some things that I didn't even know. And my mom has talked to me about this quite a few times, but knowing that all of this new information's out there, it's something interesting, I think, to discuss. Because I think the truth really does matter. But what is the truth?
Oh, Jason hit the nail dead on the head.
Facts. Yeah, there never has been a free press, Michelle. We know this.
And you know who called that out? Well, I mean, he publicly called it out. Trump.
He sure did.
And they act like he's crazy. But fake news, well, it is.
Yep.
And if you don't think it's fake news, then look right back at this and see how it was portrayed through the news, and you can tell it is. Allie. Well, he can remember his name, Allie. That's the plus when it comes to having a president.
Yeah.
But I've held everybody on here over 2 hours. But, I mean, there's so much more that we could actually go through when it comes to Kennedy. What do you all think? Do you all think that it was CIA. Jason thinks it was CIA. I think it was the man that had the most to gain working with CIA and high rollers.
Yep. And who only knows what the reason was, like I said. What if he was having an affair with somebody else that was having, you know what I'm saying? Like you have no idea. It could be a conglomerate of things. It could be a private issue that somebody's just going to take care. I need you to
He
take
was
care
a
of this
big pusher
situation.
on
Like,
civil rights too. And look who all else got killed after Kennedy. You had Martin Luther King. You had
oh yeah,
Malcolm X. Then, and Bobby was real big on it. And then he's took out. Oh, did he, Jason?
That's interesting. I like Tucker.
Well, hello, Lolly.
Hey, Lolly.
I do too. I think it was several working in conjunction with one another. One thing that I always did wonder, though, but I know she was probably afraid. Jackie had opinions. And if you all have not watched her in her own words things, the interview that she did, she actually, about 4 months after Kennedy was murdered, she sat down and did like an 8-hour interview that her daughter let be released later on. And some of that is on YouTube. But it's real interesting. She talks about how President Johnson would call, and she even said she knew he was just using her because, America had to accept him as a president. But she tells a lot of interesting stuff. She actually talks about his back in it, and that's like 4 months. And, he went to great lengths for people not to know how, I hate to use the word feeble, but that's what comes to mind, that he really was. There's a lot of times he was walking on crutches. He had Addison's disease. The priest came in and read his last rites several times, thinking that he was going to die. She talks about what disarray the White House was in. That it looked like Eisenhower just walked around in his cleats in the Oval Office. That the carpet was horrible. Yeah. Yeah, she don't mention that too much, but you can kind of tell it in there. But I'd say his back was bad as me girlfriends. Lordy mercy.
I'm telling you, for real. I mean, all these presidents and all these girlfriends. I mean, good Lord Almighty.
And one of his friends said that he said he'd get a migraine if he didn't get strange. He'd have had a headache.
What now?
Yes, I ain't kidding,
Cut
girl.
it out.
And if you read this book that I have in here, it's called Jackie. She talks about what she did with him when he was dead. Like her number one thing that she done was she put her hand up and under the sheet. She wasn't feeling of his elbow, does she? It's in this book.
Oh, Lord help me.
And then she took her ring and put it on his finger, her wedding band. But I'm sorry, your husband's dead and you're putting your hand up and under the sheet. I mean, people, I ain't being vulgar. It is in this book, and that's weird. I'm just going to say that's not what would be on my mind.
Well, you know, one of his mistresses, Mary Pinoy Meyer, I don't know,
Mary
like,
Myers,
yeah,
she was murdered.
yeah. I mean, somebody said that she had to die,
Yep.
but like because apparently there was this diary or something.
Yep. She had a diary and supposed to have told a lot of things that he had told in that diary, but the
Well, she
diary
got
was
him high
never
on
found.
LSD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the story they told, but she was also found in a room she never went in, reading a book she had done read without glasses
Yeah.
that she needed to see to read the book.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was
Allie,
crazy.
he told a friend that he would get a migraine headache if he didn't get strange at least once a week.
I think Judith Exner was interviewed like on 2020 too. That's one of his exes, Judith Exner. And I don't know. I mean, it's a lot. I mean,
He
there
was
was
a
a lot
part
of
of them
scandals.
hoisms. Now, and I'll be honest with you, when I first really started looking at JFK, I looked at it from the Marilyn Monroe point of view. You know, like years ago when I started digging into it, and I didn't like the dude all that good because of that. But then the more I looked at it, I was like, my gracious, there ain't no way that, you know, I guess I was asking what everybody else could be asking. How can the president of the United States be killed in front of everybody and not anybody be questioning it? And back then, believe it or not, they didn't, you all. When this first happened, they ran with the long nut story. The first one that really questioned it, was Jim Garrison. When he actually brought it to trial with Clay Shaw, which you've all seen in the JFK movie, I'm sure, which a lot of that is, the facts are construed. But and people even threatened him for questioning it. Well, there you have it.
Yep.
I mean, there could have been a number of reasons that, the Bay of Pigs could have been a reason somebody would plot having him taken out. Civil rights, believe it or not, could have been a reason. The war in Vietnam, he was talking about pulling out of there. That could have been a reason. When Kennedy first went into office, he depended too much with the Bay of Pigs on the people that were telling him things. He really learned from that. But if I'm being completely honest, I think RFK did a whole lot of talking in his ear, was a lot of the smarts behind it, so to say. Because he got him, as Attorney General and moved him into the office next to him. He didn't make as bad of mistakes after that, but oh my goodness, Jason.
Well, I'm going to hop down, Crystal, but thank you so much for having me up on panel.
Thank you for joining me, Dutchie.
Yeah,
It's always
absolutely.
better to bounce it off somebody else than it is to just feel like you're talking to
I
your
feel like
computer.
that too sometimes, when sometimes it's hard to just sit up there and talk with yourself. But I'm gonna hop down and go take the doggy out. I thought about doing a live stream with the games, but then I noticed it was already 11:38.
Oh, Lord.
And I was like, well, it's getting late, which I'll probably be up for a bit, but I know everybody else probably has to go to bed and all that kind of stuff. I ain't got nothing in store except for waiting on this storm to come through. So, but
Bless your
I hope
heart.
y'all I hope y'all have a good night. And I'm just gonna take the dog out and check out and see what's on YouTube. But I appreciate you having me up, and I love y'all, and I hope y'all have a
Love
good
you
evening.
too.
And we'll get together about Samantha's case. Just get up with me and let me know when you want
All
to do
right.
that, and we'll certainly do it. So, but I love you and I appreciate you.
Love you too, honey.
Bye, y'all.
See ya. Well, y'all, I think that was interesting. We might do some more of these lives. I love history personally, and JFK, he's an easy one. Like I said, I wanted to have it kind of outlined and everything, but it didn't work like that. I fell cow fall. And it takes very little. And if I'm being completely honest, I thought today was Friday all day long. So, like, middle of the day, I was like, oh my goodness, it's Saturday. I've got birthday stuff to buy for tomorrow. But so that threw me off. Sometimes I have a hard time focusing. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I always like talking about anything history, especially when it has to do with the presidents and when it has to do with, well, I'll tell you something else. I can go down a rabbit hole forever, and it is nothing but the royal family. And Princess Diana died on my birthday. Little fact. Oh, well, he'd to be here, Allie. But thank you all for joining us. I've enjoyed myself. I almost talked myself out of doing this live, but I'm glad I did. Sometimes, I know this is going to sound crazy, but sometimes it's stuff like these documentaries that I've got to have something to listen to when I go to sleep. And sometimes I'll turn on a history documentary. That's how I ran into the Madeline Brown interview. And you all, again, if you have not listened to that, listen to it. It's over an hour long, but it's worth it. You'll get little details that you ain't getting in your history books. And let's face it, these kids ain't even getting history no more. But I love you all. It takes zero effort to be a good human being. And I'll talk to y'all later.